It's important that you understand some fundamental chording techniques, so when it comes to making the new chords that you learn, they sound clean and you have a little bit easier time learning new chords. So in this lesson, I'm going to give you some tips for making the chords we'll be going over later in these lessons. Let's just start by defining what an open chord is. An open chord, generally speaking, is a chord that uses just the first 3 frets of the guitar and uses at least one open string. With that in mind, we're going to be using an open E major chord for this lesson just to go over some technique tips to make playing chords sound good and a little bit easier for you too. The first thing I want you to do is just stick your hand out like you're holding a baseball or an apple or something and just relax. Bring it up to the guitar, put your thumb on the back of the neck, and then just bring your hands to the strings. You don't have to make any chord yet, but that's a really good posture that you're going to want to be thinking about when you make these open chords. Let's pull up an open E chord diagram. And if you've never had a chord diagram before, don't worry, I'll explain it to you as we go along. So remember that posture that we talked about, thumb on the back of the neck. And the first finger you're going to want to put down is your first finger or index finger on the first fret of the 3rd string or the G string. And when you do this, you're going to want to be right behind the fret. I'll show you why. It's a nice clean note, right? If I go back to the middle of the fret or to the back, it starts to buzz. So that's really the first tip, is to be right behind the frets when you're fretting a note, making these chords, and it'll make the note sound really clean. Another tip here, when you have just this first finger on, is to not let it mute the neighboring strings. And to do that, you're going to want to come right down on the very tip of your finger. And see, when I hit that open B string right next to it, it's clear, right? If I kind of get relaxed and let that finger hang over, it's going to mute that neighboring string. So you want to come right down on the very tip of your finger. That way that B string is nice and clear. The next finger that you need to put in place to make this open E chord is your 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string right there. And again, it's right behind the fret, and I'm coming right down on the very tip of my finger, so this finger doesn't lean over and mute that G string. That's really important. And one thing that can help you come down on the very tips of your fingers like this, so you're not muting other strings, is to bring your elbow in close to your body so you get a better angle of attack to come straight down on your fingertips. If I have my elbow up here, it's very hard to come down on the very tips of my fingers, but if I kind of relax, pull it into my body, it's easier to get a good position on those 2 notes. The last finger we need to put down to make the rest of this open E chord is our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. And this can kind of present a problem because we can't get right behind the fret because our 3rd finger is already kind of in the way. But you can get just as close as you can to scrunch it up there as close as you can. You can still get a clean note out of that A string right there. So 2nd finger, 2nd fret of the A string. And once you have this on, you can strum all 6 strings for the open E chord. Now, if your chord sounds like this, there's some notes missing out of it, or if there's some buzz, just recheck everything. Make sure your index finger is right behind the fret. Come right down to the very tip of your finger. Elbow in. Play that note by itself, make sure it's clean. Come to your 3rd finger, 2nd fret of the D, right behind the fret. Make sure your elbow is in, right on your fingertip. And then 2nd finger, 2nd fret. And as far as the chord diagram goes, you're going to see some circles down here below the nut. Those circles are just telling you to play those strings open. And the difference between the hollow circles, or the white ones, and the filled in circles are that the hollow ones are not root notes of the chord, and the filled in circles, the black ones, there, there, and there, are root notes. So those are all E notes. That's what those are telling you. So just play through that chord a bunch, each string individually, and make sure it's clean, and apply all the tips we went over. And another tip I want to give you right here so your wrist doesn't get sore is don't kink your wrist too far one way or the other. If you kink it too far this way, and your thumb's not on the back of the neck like this, you're never going to be able to get in a position where you're going to make all those notes clean, right? If you can't get too far the other way, you'll probably get a good sound out of it. But it's going to start to get sore here after a while, and that's the last thing you want. I know that's a lot of information for you, but really the point of this lesson isn't to make this open E major chord clean or memorize the shape. The point is to get you familiar with these technique tips for making open chords. That way, as we work through the rest of these lessons, you're going to have an easier time making these open chords. Up next, we'll go over the 3 open chords that we're going to use throughout the rest of these videos. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to check out this entire series, get some motivation, and continue with your positive momentum, you can click the link in the video description where you'll get step-by-step video lessons that take all the confusion away of what to learn next, fun jam tracks to give you clear musical goals, and community support when you need it. Just go ahead and click the link in the description for all the details.